anybody else mind if I leave the door open to let in some air?
You're surrounded by light, that's why.
I feel like I should be getting a tan if I'm this hot. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Dawn Yeager, Swami Ambikananda. I was ordained over 5 years ago, and I started in 1993 with cassette tapes, learning from Goswami Kriyananda at that time. I'm really happy to be here. I'm from Myrtle Beach. I spend time here in Chicago, also Philadelphia, New York City, different parts of South Carolina, Fort Lauderdale, and in 9 days I'll be going to India for the month, which is new for me because I've been at home with babies for a very long time. So now they were old enough to tell me I could go. So, so that will be very exciting, and I hope to bring back some nice, fun, kind of revamped energy within my own self. So today I wanted to talk about the Upanishads, but before I start, I also just want to say that I'm really enjoy a very open atmosphere and dialect, and if you have questions or there's something that you want clarification at, you can just say it. You can raise your hand if you whatever you like. So the formal part's kind of over, and this part's kind of like the philosophy jam. We get to just kind of talk a little bit and really understand how some of this beautiful ancient scripture applies to a modern life. How do we, take this sometimes heavy topics and make it easeful? How do we bridge the gap between the ancient mystics and modern day yogis? So that's what I really hope to do. Sometimes we learn the philosophy, but then we get home and we have the kids and the dishes and the phone and the bills, and we're like, I got to get this stuff done. I don't have time to, deal with that. So I hope to make it just very easy to understand these concepts, and when you get home, to apply them in the most, mundane situations, the things that you have to do every day because they are now your duty, things that you've signed up for. So a brief history, very brief, of the Upanishads. They were created over a long period of time. So they weren't created in one sitting, in 1 year, even in 1 decade. They were manifest over a long period of time. And some say that the translation is to sit near one's teacher. However, on a deeper symbolical level, I believe it really means to sit near your own truth. Because your inner guru, your inner guide, is really your teacher, and all of the other physical teachers are there to help you translate your own inner wisdom. So they also say that you are a piece of God consciousness. What I love about these Upanishads is they are select teachings. There's 108 of them with reoccurring themes. And it's one of the first texts that I found so old that has one written by a teenager, one written by a woman. They're not just yogis with dreads that are of a certain age and of a certain gender. It's a very wide range. So they are written from the viewpoint of different ages, different genders, different places in their lives, but all reflecting on their own moment of God consciousness. I love that because we are all so different, but yet at the core, we are all very similar. So you are able to read these in a way that you think, wow, this person, this resonates. This is like me. This makes sense. And then you can expand that awareness to all the others once you kind of find the core of what they're saying. While the teaching is just the snapshot of universal understanding, human to cosmos, they are both mystical and symbolic. So when you look at the teachings, you can try to pick out the symbolism, and that symbolism is really the same themes that run through your own life. So you can think of many different cultures, different ages, different places and vocations within your life, but at the root of it, we're all moving away from pain, anxiety, fear, and discomfort, and we're all moving toward love, acceptance, God consciousness, and seeing ourselves as one with many different faces, right? So with the 108 Upanishads, here's some reoccurring themes. Everyone talks about who is the self. Right? So that's one of the main questions. Who is the self? Are we really different? Are we more similar than we are alike? What is the universe? I'm not going to answer these, by the way. That's too much? No. But that is the idea, is that they are beckoning you to ask these questions over and over again to yourself. What is the energy that moves the cosmos? Where does it all come from? Where does it all begin? What was the creation or projection, depending on how you look at it? Again, where did this come from? So these Upanishads were written in a time that there wasn't, big tall buildings and electricity. So when you would sit on the ground or near a tree, what you really pondered was, what is out there and where did this come from? Instead of, what's the new app and how do I download it? So we have different questions at that time. So in this way, it keeps drawing back to these very humanistic questions that are of a divine origin. How did all of this evolve initially? And I think a lot of what these questions are getting at is, are we all separate? Are we all cosmically linked? Do we return to that same source? One Upanishad I would like to talk about, I thought it would be smarter to pick one instead of 108. So one, especially we do talk about in Kriya Yoga mostly, I've found in the past 24 years, is the Isha Upanishad. The Swamis, when they're ordained, they sing the Isha Upanishad. There's a mantra and there's also a writing or an Upanishad. Just for reference, you can get books on the Upanishads, and my very favorite translation is from Eknath Eswaran, and I also really just like to say his name. So his name is Eknath Eswaran, and he's brilliant. He also has the Dhammapada and the Bhagavad Gita translations, and what I love about it is it's not watered down, but the way that he describes it, you immediately understand. You don't need a highlighter. You don't need Post-its in there to understand. You don't really even have to go back to it. You read it, and the way he translates is so rich and so beautiful that you immediately, it becomes a part of you, of your own learning. So I highly recommend Eknath Eswaran's translations of those three texts. But yes, I will try. Eknath, I believe, is Eknath. Eswaran, I believe, is Esarwen, but I believe he's the only person with Eknath. So I think if you start there, he's probably going to pop up. That's the only time I've heard that name, but it's one of my favorites now. Okay. And you can get it on Amazon, very, very reasonable, and a nice soft copy. So the Isha Upanishad talks about, and I did talk about this a little bit at the noon lecture, that your earth life is your spiritual life. Okay, perfect. Double duty, right? We don't have to go to work all day and then get in 3 hours of meditation and then make sure we tuck the kids in and then get to the dishes at the end of the night. We don't have to do that. Every single thing that we do moving through our day can be a spiritual practice. So you have to do the dishes, right? It's not going away. It's not only not going away, but it's going to get worse. Like there's going to be more and more. You leave, look where you are now. You get home, sink is going to be full one way or another, right? So this doesn't end. So what we can do as we're washing each plate or rinsing them before they go into the dishwasher, we can sit there and think, well, who dirtied this plate? Why didn't they rinse it off? Why didn't they put it in the right side of the sink? I told them not to eat that. Or as we're rinsing the plate, we can do it as if we are doing it for our higher consciousness, for God consciousness, or for a figure of God that you personally identify with, right? One of the way I explain it often, I have a studio in Myrtle Beach, and I explain often that it's all about the intent of what you're doing, not about what you're actually doing. So if you were going to make a sandwich for, someone maybe your neighbor, somebody you lived with a long time, somebody you grew up with, you most likely will go in the kitchen, slap together the sandwich, get it done, here's your sandwich, However, if you were making a sandwich for a brand new love interest, you go into the kitchen, you get the best plate, you pick the 2 most perfect pieces of bread, you put the mayonnaise on perfectly, no little spot is not covered, you stack everything perfectly, you cut it perfectly, and you give them the sandwich perfectly, right? So the idea is that all day we are going through all these tasks, and we can be building a feeling of negativity, a feeling of duty that feels unfair, or we can be practicing love, attention, being present, being purposeful. So we are not haphazard beings. Total of your habits. So if you are careful with everything you do, that carries on throughout life. You'll be careful with your spiritual practice. You'll be careful as you cross the street. So we don't really, as humans, with divine form within us, we don't really have the ability to pick when we're going to be sloppy and when we're going to do it perfect. So the Isha Upanishad is kind of saying, use every moment as a spiritual practice. When you fold the towel, sometimes it has to be quickly, but at least think good thoughts as you're doing it. Well, how do I do that when I don't like laundry or dishes, and I didn't even make the laundry or the dishes, right? One of the things that I use is mantra, okay? So prior to entering the seminary here in 2009, I was going to Ball State University for neuropsychology, the study of the brain and rewiring the neural pathways of the brain. I went through, and then when I got to the point that, actually what you do is you just prescribe meds, and then you don't worry about that pathway anymore, I decided that wasn't the route for me, because I knew there was these mystical and ancient techniques of rewiring your own brain, therefore raising your level of consciousness, therefore creating a life of your choosing without changing externals. So I quit school, sorry mom, and I entered the Kriya Yoga Seminary. And in that way, I took all that learning from a really 6 years of training in neuropsychology, and all this is different words for the same ideas. We use meditation, mantra, concentration. So mantra, you can rewire your brain to move from that negative neural pathway to a positive neural pathway. So if you have a field of beautiful grass, and you are here, and your goal is to get here, and so you walk through that grass, and you end up on the other side. The next day, you do the same thing. The next day, you do the same thing. 3 weeks later, you have a path. That's the same thing that happens deep within your brain. You create a shortcut, but instead of going to a place, you're going to a thought, a behavior, and a feeling. So, if we want to rewire the way we treat ourselves and the way we see the world, the first thing we have to do is become present. So when we're walking that same path and we start to go the same direction, maybe next time you only go halfway and you go, oh wait, this isn't the path. I wanted to create a new path. This one's muddy. I don't want it anymore. You back yourself up, you go 4 feet down, and you walk through that tall grass. At the beginning, it's not as easy. You don't know what's under your feet. You can't see as well. The grass is up to your knees. But the same way as you created that first path, neural pathway, you can create a new one. If each time we catch ourselves going down that old path quicker and quicker and quicker, and we redirect to that new path, eventually we will no longer step on that old path. Eventually, that old thought, I'm not good enough, I'm not whatever it is, fill in the 5 things you say daily, that will cease to exist. That pathway will grow over. It will no longer be able to transport you to those negative thought forms anymore. And suddenly, your new habit, your new life, is a life of positivity. Now, the dishes are still there. The laundry's still there. But when you're folding it, you're singing mantra. And it's a whole different life that you are experiencing. And I really believe that that is the power of a practice, is to give you the power to live the life of your own choosing. And I believe it can take as little as maybe 3 weeks. It takes only 40 days to create a habit. How many times a day are you rewiring that, right, neural pathway? It's definitely more than once. You might be able to get done in a week. You just got to catch yourself earlier and earlier each time. Any questions about that? It's good stuff though, right? Yeah.
When you say mantra, do you actually mean a phrase?
I do, okay. Yes. And I believe that you can really use anything. I'm going to share one with you that I use at the end. We'll kind of do it together. It has a little cadence to it, and that's why it works for me, because I'm a more excitable and musical person. And so often people use affirmations. Those don't work for me. I think they're beautiful. I think they're great, but I say it to myself and it's it's just nothing. It doesn't connect. So my recommendation is to use what connects, use what picture spirit up, you can feel it in your heart. And maybe for you, it's an old prayer from childhood. Maybe for you, it's a mantra to a deity that has qualities that you want to bring into your life. Maybe it is an affirmation that you write on your mirror, you write during the day. Maybe that works for you. So I'll tell you a little secret that's kind of funny. I was waiting tables for a long time. That's not the funny part. And that wasn't funny. And I would be plagued with these, challenging thoughts, just constant negative thoughts of fear and anxiety and just the regular stuff that I think we all have. And what would happen is I noticed they didn't go away. They didn't help anything. They seemed to be getting worse. So I started using my mantra. And I did the one that I'm going to share with you today. And so I would go back into the back room, get from my table, get all 10 drinks, fill them all up, and I would see how many times I could say the mantra before I got back to the table. I'd get to the table, pass out the drinks, see how many times I could say the mantra till I went back and got them the things they forgot to tell me. And I did that for 6, 8, 10 hours a day. And by the end of one summer, I was a different person. My consciousness was different. I saw beauty in things that before would have me on my knees crying. I literally changed my life by rewiring my brain. And this is now 20 years later, and I still use the same mantra. And every time it brings me to this place of beauty that it's like going home. That's what it feels like to me. I remember who I am without the archetypes. So archetypes are all your hats, given to you or taken, whichever it is. So you have archetypes of family, right? Jobs and responsibilities. You have archetypes of cultures. You have archetypes of this country. You have archetypes of careers, right? How many hats do you wear, right? If we are only shaped by those hats, what happens when those hats are done and fulfilled? Who are we then, if not lost, right? So this practice for me of mantra brings you to the deepest place within yourself. And it's like taking that socket, taking that plug from a lamp, and instead of putting it next to the socket, which is not very helpful, you're putting it into the socket. And then there it is, that light. So your direction now is internally. Your compass now is internal. And the iPhone compass is helpful as well. Just keep remembering that, because I swear that's why they put that on there for meditation. Actually, Steve Jobs, if you don't know, his favorite book his most influential book of all time was Autobiography of a Yogi.
Oh.
Yeah, and if you worked for him, you were required to read the book. Not only that, but he loved it so much, it is free on iPad and iPhone. You can download it for free.
Really?
Yes. So there's that.
He also gave it,
Yes.
anytime he gave a lecture, he put it under everybody's seats.
Really?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And when he got any sort of a degree from a university, everybody that attended got the book.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, one time, about 6 years ago, I got a call from the postmaster, and because my yoga studio, it's always locked. We open the door, let people in, then we lock them in. And then we let them out when they're done. We don't have a store. We're just for training. And he called and he said, I have 4 or 5 boxes here for you. You need to get these. We've been driving around with them for weeks. Somebody had sent 108 copies of Autobiography of a Yogi to my studio for me to give out. And I still don't know who that was. But my guess is they won the lottery or something, I'm pretty sure, and moved on to a beautiful life.
What I'm thinking about the beauty of what you're saying
Yes.
is it's true, and I use this for inspiration, that airplanes, when they're flying, the pilots are, I forgot what the percentage is off, but they're off 90% of the time, so they keep on course correct. And it's because of turbulence and
Right.
natural, laws and whatever. And I say that only because people can get discouraged and judge themselves, but if you can remember the airplane, it always gets to the airport.
Right.
It's just course correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's all self-correction,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
isn't that what we're doing as a spiritual practice? We're observing and adjusting, observing and adjusting. And how can you make that adjustment? Only if you're present, right? Only if you're present and truly connected to your own internal compass. Right? Beautiful. Thank you for that. So, some of the lessons drawn from the Isha Upanishad, besides your earth life and your spiritual life, are the same, and they are harmonious. They don't have to be at odds. They are harmonious. But it draws you back to the idea of the inner ruler or the inner compass, which I already explained without even looking. For enlightenment, we need to live in the world, but not be of it. Okay? So we don't want to be ruled by the world around us, because let's face it, our westernized world is mostly ruled by mass media and by the idea of selling stuff, right? So we need to participate in it, but not be run by it. Right? So for me, that is the biggest thing that I can do to be of the world but not be run by it, is to be of service. And I believe that everyone can be in service. It doesn't mean you have to volunteer if you don't have time. It doesn't mean anything that is super concrete. You can be in service each day if you're present. Every time you walk down the street, if you just give someone a smile, you're being of service. If you pick up something on the ground that's not supposed to be there, you're being of service. If you're truthful in your own experience and not embarrassed by the difficulties of your past, you are being of service because you are empowering others to do the same. So in that way, we're living in the world, but we are not controlled and held underneath it. What lessons can we draw from the Isha Upanishad? Detached effort allows for a meaningful life without disappointment. Wow. That's a tall order. Detached effort allows for a meaningful life without disappointment. Let's go back to the household duties example, right? So you do things at home because they have to be done, not because you're waiting for the pat on the back, right? So what happens if you go home, you clean the house, you make a beautiful dinner, and then you sit back and you wait? And then nothing. People come in, they throw their shoes there, their bag there, they eat all the food, leave the dishes, and go up to bed. Then what? Right? Then you're feeling regret and anguish, maybe even anger. You might not do it the next day. And then you're creating this inner turmoil. But what if you just did all that stuff as a spiritual practice? And you did your mantra while you were doing it. You practiced being careful. You practiced doing everything with meaning. Then when they came and did all that, you still had your spiritual practice. You did it because it had to be done, not because you want accolades from that. Right? And then if you do get it, it's just a bonus. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you noticing. Right? It's especially helpful if you have teenagers, I think. I have two. They're bigger than me. Renunciation of ego, not of love, not of life, not of wealth. Okay? Right? So the ancient scriptures talk a lot about renunciation. Well, what are we renunciating? Everything? Just live on a mountain? No clothes, no food? You know? For somebody, maybe, but they were probably born there, right? They were born into what they were maybe supposed to do. When we renunciate, we're renunciating this idea that we are better than or not better than. We are renunciating the idea that we are separate from others. We're renunciating the idea that our pain is separate from others. So the brain is made to create separation. It's made to decide. The root of decide is disease. Right? Separation causes illness, both in the heart, in the mind, and then finally in the body. So if we renunciate this idea that we are separate than others, then we always see ourselves as part of the moving whole. We see ourselves as held up by others. We see ourselves as being a part of and feeling compassion toward others rather than feeling comparison and judgment, because we never win that game. Because you never compare yourself to someone that's in the same kind of realm as you at that time. You're always looking outside somewhere else and saying, why can't I do that? Right? So if you picture the ocean, this is the Isha Upanishad, and I spoke about it at 12. But each wave for a moment rises up, and I believe that that wave thinks it's pretty awesome, thinks it's pretty great. Look at me, all puffed up. And then a moment later, it's done. It's back into the hole. That one wave is the same as the entire ocean. And that is really, for me, it seems like our rising into our form, into our body, and then our releasing of that back into the whole. So why get so puffed up? The Isha Upanishad also redirects your consciousness to the Atma rather than the ego identity. So the soul, deep within the heart, the right side of the heart, there's actually a little space, a little cave in the right side of the heart. And that is said where God consciousness lives, a little spark of it right inside of you. So when you direct your consciousness inward, you move it from this idea of who am I, what's my name, what's my place, who am I above, who am I below, and you direct that consciousness to that part of you that lives beyond all of that, that doesn't see separation. The last thing, thou art that. You are that. Satnam. You are whole and complete. Everything you want to be, you already are. It is a matter of unfolding the layers of what the world has done to you. Okay? The pain that you have been through, the straining and the discomfort of past loves, of past jobs, of the things that did not work out. If we can truly allow ourselves to let go of all of those things, then you are that. You are left with nothing but this perfect piece of divinity, of divine consciousness. So as you move into your day and into the world, think less about what do I need to do, to be, to become, to buy, and think more about what do I need to stop doing so I can feel that place again? What do I need to let go of in order to reconnect? Any questions? All right, let's do that mantra. Okay. So it's very simple, but I give it a little melody. And that, I think, it helps to, get there. Unless you don't like music. I don't know. So it's Om Namah Shivaya. And that roughly translates to the divine is found within. It's everything we were just talking about. What I need is found deep within myself. And so it's sung 4 times with a different melody each. And then you repeat that at least 3 times. And if you have a long walk to your table, 14 times. Or however you're walking or wherever you're going or however big your basket of laundry is that day. Okay? So I will sing it first, and then you repeat, and we'll go back and forth that way. 12 times only takes about 2 minutes, so it goes by fairly quickly. And allow yourself to be heard. However, if you don't want to be heard, you still get the benefit by listening and feeling the vibrations of others. Okay?
Can you
Yes.
spell this again?
Yes, Om Namah Shivaya, O-M, Namah, N-A-M-A-H, Shivaya, S-H-I-V-I-A-H. And this is a very auspicious day for Shiva as well. Okay, here we go. It's a band. We're a band now. Om Namah Shivaya.
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 Together. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Just take a moment for intention or to dedicate the energy of this practice together to someone who may need it. Let's close with one Om together. Take a deep breath. Om. Shanti. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
The Upanishad that you were referencing, when
Yes.
was that written?
When? I don't know.
Oh,
But I am honest. I don't know. But that would be a good Google. That would be, you get that answer real quick. Yeah.
Do you do kirtans at your yoga?
I do. I do.
Aren't they wonderful?
Oh, they're so wonderful. I crave them.
Me too.
They are so wonderful. I actually assisted Krishna Das
Did you?
for a while, which means I got him coffee and sandwiches. Don't get too excited. I just carried his stuff.
I love KD. I've
If-
been to many of his seminars.
Yes, I was never the same after that, just being by him. He is the most normal dude.
Do you know he was in Blue Oyster Cult?
Yes, he told me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he's wonderful. So wonderful.
It really is.
Yeah.
Have you been to Joshua Tree?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I have been home with children. I have really not left them, and they are 14 and almost 17 now. And
The Bhakti Fest.
yeah, that would be very nice.
Would be wonderful.
That would be very nice. So I'm just now venturing out a little bit, thanks to my husband. So thank you to him. Any other questions about anything at all? It doesn't have to be about this.
Who were you just talking about that you used to?
Krishna Das.
Oh, Krishna Das.
Yeah. So KD.
Very cool guy.
Yeah.
And Ram Dass?
Ram Das and Krishna Das are very dear friends. And every winter they do a seminar together in Maui. So he's quite, and actually I have this poster of Ram Das that he signed, and it was a Christmas present from Krishna Das. So, and that's in my studio. Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful people. And so he has a movie, a documentary called One Track Heart, and it's really beautiful. I watch it on the plane. I've seen it 100 times. It's what I watch on the plane, but it's beautiful.
The only Grammy-nominated kirtan singer, too.
Yes. Yeah, he played at the Grammys. Yeah, they didn't air it on TV, but he played at the Grammys. Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. And he has one of his CDs is all call and response. And it comes with a book. Do you remember the name of it? Can't recall right now, but it's his only book with a CD in it. And so he has a lot of CDs where it's recorded live call and response, or it's just him singing. But this one in particular, he sings the mantra and then nothing, and that's for you to sing it. And it's like you're there with him and you just go back and forth. And within that book, there's also the melody for piano or harmonium to play with the songs. It's very beautiful.
His For Your Love is like one of my very favorite. I don't know how to say the actual name of the song.
Yeah.
It goes into For Your Love. from
Yes.
the Birds,
Yeah.
and it's just, I can listen to it every day.
It's so beautiful. Yeah, and he one of my favorite gigs that he plays is he plays every October, November in New York City at, I believe it's St. Andrew's. It's this, I've been about 5 times, this beautiful church, and it is such a wonderful experience. The ticket's only like $20, but you have to get it the day it goes on sale, because for yogis, he is as popular as the Beatles. So you have to get that ticket quick.
And what is that? Is it Krishna Das or Ram Dass?
Krishna Das. Yeah. Ram Das doesn't leave Maui that often any longer. So, yeah.
Yeah, if you write down kirtan and Google kirtan, you'll come up with all kinds of beautiful chants and songs and that genre of call and response music. It's just so heart-opening and beautiful.
It is. And I think part of it really fits this lecture, because what you are doing is stripping away that feeling of separateness. You sing together. It is such a reminder of who we really are underneath all of our hats.
And everybody's breathing at the same rate.
Yes.
So it's very powerful.
It's very, very powerful. highly recommend chanting. So, and that's how we rewire those neural pathways. Thank you. So on my website, if you're interested, I do have some cards as well. The only reason I know I'm in Myrtle Beach, but I'm here often. I have free yoga classes, free PDFs. I have chanting on there. I record my students. They don't know, but they don't care. It's fine. Just when they sound good, I record on my phone and then I put it on my website. So there's some nice information on there. So if you'd like a card, I have some of those with me. And you can always shoot me. I have any link on there. I create all my own websites and digital stuff. That's my creative side. That's all I do. Digital creation, don't ask me to paint or draw. You only get a stick figure, but I can make a beautiful website. So any link on there goes directly to me personally. I get it and I get right back to you, and I really enjoy it. So please reach out whenever you would like.
Do you do your yoga classes with music also?
Sometimes, but if I do have music, it's generally kind of background music. So I've been teaching physical poses for 20 years. And at first I used to make playlists and that was the thing. And then I just outgrew that. So I generally just put on some Pandora chill background music because I really want them to be called to themselves internally rather than be calling externally, jamming out, or I think there's a time for that, but I like to separate them. I want people to feel the discomfort in their body, which I talked about at the noon meditation. I want, when I work in a bit more aggressive of a practice, it's not, really, really challenging. You can work always at your own level, but I believe that you should be at your edge and then backed off this much so your breath is full and complete, because that will help to open your comfort level in your everyday life. I often tell people, listen, if I'm not doing a Navasana, I'm comfortable. If I'm not doing a boat pose or a push-up, I'm good. I'm comfortable, So that's how I like to use the poses, is to experience discomfort. And then in your everyday life, man, you start to feel real comfortable, real easy. So that's the way we use the poses. So I actually teach poses here as well. When I fly in, I come in on Thursday or Friday. I teach a hatha, which is really vinyasa because I flow a little bit, on Saturdays, and then I do the Sunday today. So I'll be leaving for India in 9 days. I'll be there for a month. Yeah, thank you. I'm excited about it. I haven't ever left my business or my kids that long, but it will be good. It's time. And then I will be back here in May and June. So, yeah, thank you.
Anyone special?
I'm going to World Peace Yoga School. I've been really interested in that for a long time because you not only get the hatha training of the poses, but it's richly immersed in bhakti and kirtan. So that's why I picked that space. It's one of the founders was a student of Maharishi, maybe the Beatles. Okay, so the founder of that school was a student of, and they're close to each other within walking distance, the Beatles ashram and the World Peace Yoga School. It's on the bank of the Ganges. So that will be very interesting, I'm sure. I like to call things interesting because there's no good or bad. It's just, so anytime you want to make a comment about anything, just say it's interesting. Yeah. Because people are like, okay. That's a trick that I learned from Goswami. So just call it interesting and you're always good. People can take from that what they want. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to get some cards out if you are interested. Beautiful.